Building confidence in speaking English fluently wasn't just a goal for me, it was a journey that transformed my life. I still remember how nervous I felt whenever I had to speak in English. My heart would race, my palms would sweat, and I'd constantly worry about making mistakes or being judged. But I also knew that mastering this skill was essential for achieving my dreams. Whether it was to connect with people worldwide, excel in my career, or simply enjoy traveling without barriers, English fluency was my ticket to a bigger world. In this guide, I'll take you through the steps that helped me overcome my fears and become confident in speaking English. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when I felt stuck, but every little effort built up to something meaningful. I learned not only how to express myself clearly, but also how to enjoy the process of learning. We'll explore how to address fears and self-doubt, strategies to practice effectively, ways to improve fluency in real-life situations, and how to maintain confidence long-term. This is my personal journey, shared with the hope that it inspires and guides you on your path to fluent, confident English speaking. Section 1. Understanding and tackling the fear of speaking English. When I first started learning English, my biggest obstacle wasn't vocabulary or grammar, it was fear. I was terrified of making mistakes, being laughed at, or sounding foolish. These fears built a wall around my confidence, and every time I had an opportunity to speak English, I hesitated. But over time, I realized that fear was natural and could be managed with the right approach. The first step in overcoming this fear was to understand where it was coming from. For me, it stemmed from a mix of self-doubt and perfectionism. I felt that if I couldn't speak flawlessly, I shouldn't speak at all. It's ironic because I knew deep down that making mistakes was part of the learning process. But when it came to speaking in front of others, my inner critic was relentless. To break free from this fear, I had to change my mindset. I started telling myself that mistakes were not failures. They were lessons. Every time I stumbled over a word or mispronounced something, I reminded myself that I was one step closer to improving. This shift in perspective made a huge difference. Instead of fearing mistakes, I began to embrace them as opportunities to grow. I also took some practical steps to reduce my anxiety. One of the most effective strategies was practicing in a safe, non-judgmental environment. I joined an English-speaking group where everyone was learning, just like me. We supported each other and celebrated progress, no matter how small. This sense of community gave me the courage to speak up and try, even when I wasn't sure about my words. Another powerful tool I discovered was self-recording. I'd record myself speaking on different topics and then listen back to identify areas for improvement. At first, it was uncomfortable hearing my own voice, but it became a valuable way to track my progress. With each recording, I could see how my pronunciation improved, how I used new vocabulary, and how I gradually sounded more confident. Visualization also played a key role in building my confidence. Before any English-speaking situation, I'd take a few moments to imagine myself speaking fluently and confidently. I'd picture the conversation going smoothly and feel the sense of accomplishment that came with it. This mental rehearsal helped calm my nerves and made real-life interactions feel less intimidating. One of the most liberating realizations was that most people are far more understanding than I'd imagined. When I finally mustered the courage to speak with native speakers, I discovered that they appreciated my effort and were patient when I struggled. It taught me that communication is about connection, not perfection. Slowly but surely, these small but consistent efforts chipped away at my fear. The nervousness didn't disappear overnight, but it became manageable. I started to feel more excited than anxious about speaking opportunities. This section of my journey was all about taking control of my mindset and actions. By understanding my fear, creating supportive practice environments, and embracing mistakes, I built a foundation for confidence. Now, I could step into the next stage of the journey, developing fluency through consistent practice and real-life conversations. Section 2. Building fluency through consistent practice. Once I began overcoming the fear of speaking, I realized that building fluency required more than just courage. It needed consistent, deliberate practice. Speaking English fluently was not something I could achieve overnight, but with patience and effort, I started to see results that felt rewarding. The first thing I did was set aside dedicated time each day for speaking practice. I made this a non-negotiable part of my routine, just like brushing my teeth or eating meals. Even if it was just 15 minutes, I made sure to talk in English daily. At first, I practiced alone, speaking to myself about my day, describing things around me, or narrating simple stories. It felt strange at the beginning, but it was incredibly effective in getting my tongue used to forming English words. One of the most transformative habits I developed was shadowing. Shadowing involves listening to native speakers, whether in videos, podcasts, or audiobooks, and repeating what they say, mimicking their tone, rhythm, and pronunciation. I started with simple sentences and gradually worked my way up to complex dialogues. It was challenging, but immensely rewarding. Shadowing taught me the natural flow of English and improved my pronunciation without me even realizing it. To make my practice more engaging, I incorporated real-world activities. For instance, I'd watch a TV show or a YouTube video and then summarize it aloud in my own words. If I encountered words or phrases I didn't know, I'd look them up and try using them in sentences immediately. This not only expanded my vocabulary, but also reinforced the habit of using new words in context, which made them stick in my memory. Another key part of my journey was finding speaking partners. This was a game changer. I joined online platforms where I could connect with English learners and native speakers. Having real conversations, even with mistakes, was the fastest way to improve. I learned to listen actively, respond thoughtfully, and keep conversations flowing naturally. My partners often corrected me gently, which helped me refine my grammar and pronunciation without feeling discouraged. In addition to these interactions, I challenged myself by participating in language exchange programs. I'd help someone learn my native language, and in return, they'd help me with English. It was an excellent way to immerse myself in different accents and conversational styles. Plus, the mutual exchange created a supportive and encouraging environment. Practicing in real-life situations was another leap forward. I made an effort to use English wherever possible, at cafes, shops, or while traveling. Initially, it was nerve-wracking, but these practical experiences taught me to think on my feet and adapt to various contexts. For example, ordering food or asking for directions became opportunities to practice my speaking skills. Self-assessment was crucial during this phase. I'd reflect on my progress regularly, celebrating milestones, and identifying areas for improvement. I learned to be patient with myself, understanding that fluency isn't about being perfect, but about being able to communicate effectively. One of the biggest lessons I learned during this phase was the importance of enjoying the process. I stopped seeing speaking English as a chore and started treating it as an adventure. Whether it was cracking jokes in English, sharing my thoughts with a partner, or simply talking to myself while cooking, I found joy in every opportunity to speak. This stage of my journey was all about consistent practice, experimenting with different methods, and finding the courage to step out of my comfort zone. Each effort, no matter how small, added up over time and brought me closer to fluency. Section 3. Expanding vocabulary through immersion. When I started focusing on expanding my vocabulary, I discovered that this was not just about memorizing words, but about immersing myself in the language and its rich diversity. To truly communicate fluently, I needed to build a robust vocabulary that would allow me to express my ideas clearly and confidently. One of the first things I did was surround myself with English. I began reading books, articles, and blogs on topics that fascinated me. At first, I picked simpler materials like graded readers and children's books because they were easy to follow and not intimidating. As my confidence grew, I transitioned to novels, newspapers, and even scientific journals, depending on my mood and curiosity. This gradual progression helped me absorb words in context rather than just memorizing their definitions. I also embraced the power of active reading. While reading, I kept a notebook by my side to jot down unfamiliar words or phrases. But I didn't stop there. Instead of just writing their meanings, I wrote sentences using these new words. For instance, if I encountered the word intriguing, I'd create my own sentence like, "The mystery novel had an intriguing plot." This method helped me internalize the words and made it easier to recall them during conversations. Listening to English was another cornerstone of my vocabulary building journey. I started tuning in to podcasts, audiobooks, and TED Talks regularly. At first, I'd choose materials with transcripts so I could follow along and understand better. If I heard a phrase like, "a blessing in disguise," I'd pause, note it down, and later look for examples of its usage. Over time, I found myself naturally picking up idioms, phrasal verbs, and colloquial expressions. Music became a fun and effective tool in this process. I'd listen to English songs, paying close attention to the lyrics. Singing along not only improved my pronunciation, but also introduced me to informal phrases and slang. Songs like "Imagine" by John Lennon or "Let It Be" by the Beatles were not just inspiring but also rich in vocabulary. Watching movies and TV shows in English also played a pivotal role. Initially, I used subtitles to bridge the gap, but as my understanding improved, I started watching without them. Shows like Friends and The Office exposed me to conversational English, while movies like The Pursuit of Happiness and Dead Poets Society introduced me to more formal and motivational language. Flashcards were another handy tool I incorporated into my daily routine. I used apps like Anki, which allowed me to create digital flashcards with words, meanings, and example sentences. Reviewing these cards during spare moments, like while commuting, helped reinforce my memory. I also learned the importance of categorizing vocabulary. Instead of studying random words, I focused on themes like travel, work, food, and emotions. For instance, when learning words related to emotions, I explored terms like elated, melancholy, anxious, and ecstatic. This thematic approach made it easier to group and recall related words. Real-life immersion became a priority as well. I began labeling everyday objects around my house with sticky notes: refrigerator, microwave, bookshelf, and so on. Each time I interacted with these items, I'd say their names aloud. It was a simple yet effective way to integrate vocabulary into my daily life. Another breakthrough came when I started journaling in English. Every night, I'd write about my day, thoughts, or dreams, making an effort to include new words I had learned. This practice not only improved my vocabulary, but also enhanced my writing skills. Joining online forums and discussion groups was a game changer. Platforms like Reddit and Quora allowed me to participate in discussions on various topics. I'd read others' comments and try to use advanced vocabulary in my replies. Engaging in these conversations gave me the confidence to apply my learning in real-world contexts. One of the most important lessons I learned was to embrace mistakes. Initially, I was hesitant to use new words, fearing I'd misuse them. But I realized that errors were a natural part of learning. Every time I misused a word, it became a lesson etched in my memory. By immersing myself in the language through reading, listening, and real-life interactions, I gradually expanded my vocabulary. It was a dynamic, ongoing process that required curiosity, consistency, and a willingness to step out of my comfort zone. Every new word I learned felt like unlocking a piece of the puzzle, bringing me closer to mastering the language. Section 4. Building confidence through practice and real-life conversations. Building a rich vocabulary and understanding grammar is vital, but putting that knowledge into practice is where the real transformation happens. For me, this phase of the journey was both the most challenging and the most rewarding. Learning to confidently express myself in English required not only dedication, but also overcoming my fear of making mistakes. At first, I practiced speaking alone. I would talk to myself about my day, my thoughts, or even pretend I was explaining a concept to someone. It might sound odd, but this private practice helped me get comfortable forming sentences out loud without the pressure of an audience. I'd stand in front of a mirror and observe my expressions, body language, and pronunciation, treating it like a rehearsal for real-life conversations. Recording myself was another powerful technique. I started by reading passages from books or articles aloud, recording my voice, and then listening to the playback. At first, hearing my own voice felt strange, but it helped me identify areas for improvement, such as mispronunciations or lack of clarity. Gradually, I moved on to recording unscripted thoughts or narrating events, which forced me to think and speak spontaneously. As my confidence grew, I sought opportunities to engage with others. Joining language exchange programs was a breakthrough. I connected with native English speakers who wanted to learn my language, and we'd help each other through conversations. This mutual exchange created a relaxed, judgment-free zone where I felt comfortable experimenting with my English. I also began attending online discussion groups and webinars. Platforms like Zoom and Discord hosted events where I could interact with people worldwide. Speaking up in group settings was nerve-wracking initially, but it was an excellent way to practice articulating my ideas in real time. Each interaction boosted my confidence and made me realize that most people are supportive and patient when it comes to language learners. Participating in public speaking clubs like Toastmasters gave me another platform to practice. Preparing speeches and presenting them in front of an audience helped me refine my delivery, tone, and fluency. These sessions also taught me to handle nerves and think on my feet, valuable skills for any conversation. Another significant aspect of my journey was learning to think in English. Instead of translating thoughts from my native language, I consciously tried to frame my ideas directly in English. This shift was challenging at first, but with practice, it became natural. Thinking in English reduced my hesitation and made my speech flow more smoothly. Engaging in real-life situations was crucial, whether it was ordering food at a restaurant, asking for directions, or making small talk with strangers. I actively sought opportunities to use English. These everyday interactions taught me practical phrases and boosted my confidence in handling spontaneous conversations. Social media became an unexpected ally. I joined English-speaking communities on platforms like Reddit, Facebook, and Twitter, commenting on posts, participating in debates, and even sharing my thoughts on trending topics allowed me to interact with a global audience. It was a great way to practice informal, conversational English. Movies and TV shows continued to be an invaluable resource, but this time I focused on mimicking the dialogues. Whenever I heard an interesting phrase or expression, I'd pause, repeat it, and try to use it in my own sentences. This imitation helped me improve my intonation, rhythm, and natural flow of speech. Perhaps the most transformative practice was surrounding myself with supportive people. I sought friends, mentors, and colleagues who encouraged me rather than judged my mistakes. Their positive feedback and constructive criticism motivated me to keep going, even on days when I felt stuck or discouraged. Over time, I noticed a profound change. My conversations became more fluid, my responses quicker, and my confidence unshakable. The fear of making mistakes, which once held me back, faded as I realized that errors were stepping stones to growth. Speaking English no longer felt like a daunting task, but an enjoyable way to connect with others and share my ideas. This phase of my journey wasn't just about learning a language. It was about finding my voice and embracing my potential. With every conversation, I felt more empowered, knowing that I was inching closer to mastery. Before we wrap up, I'd love to hear from you. If you found this guide helpful or inspiring, don't forget to like this video. It really motivates me to create more content for you. Share your thoughts, questions, or even your own English learning journey in the comments section below. I read every single one and love connecting with you. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Together, we'll continue to explore, learn, and grow. Thank you for being part of this amazing community, and I'll see you in the next video.